Gods and goddesses, welcome to the Smite God reveal for Tiamat, goddess of the Salt Sea. Tiamat is the first, the begetter of all life, the mother of creation. When the heavens did not yet exist, nor the earth below, she was there. For eons she coiled, silent and sleeping in the cosmic abyss, until she met Epsu, the god of fresh waters. Together they drew up the primeval waters of creation, and from those waters came all things. But now the wheel of creation has turned once more, and the primeval waters recede. Tiamat has surfaced from her enforced sleep and risen from the abyss to find the world, her world, much changed. Worse, it is infested with lesser gods, and like all lesser gods, they claim ownership over the heavens and the earth of that which does not belong to them. They believe themselves to be all-powerful. But Tiamat will show them what true power really is. Tiamat is a primordial goddess and has different abilities based on whether she is in her flying or ground stance. Tiamat's passive is Death Begets Life. While in her flying stance, Tiamat gains health from nearby ally and enemy deaths. In her ground stance, she gains Hardened Scales, damage mitigation that breaks after a certain amount of damage is taken instead. As a stance switcher, we will first go over how Tiamat changes between flying and ground stances. Tiamat's third ability in flying stance is Grounding Dive. Tiamat dives into the fight, landing on all fours, dealing damage and switching her abilities. This ability also provides Tiamat one Hardened Scale. Tiamat's third ability in ground stance is Rising Flight. Tiamat rears up, sending out a blast of energy, dealing damage to enemies and sending herself backwards as she returns to her flying stance. Tiamat's first ability in flying stance is Primordial Onslaught. Tiamat starts channeling, gathering energy, allowing her to fire additional projectiles at the end of the channel. This ability can fire more projectiles at ranks 3 and 5. Tiamat's second ability in flying stance is Ruination. Tiamat creates an energy field dealing low damage to enemies in the entire area, and then a larger amount in the inner area. The inner area of the field also stuns enemies for a short duration. Tiamat's ultimate ability in flying stance is Children of Creation. Children of Creation allows Tiamat to summon her children onto the battlefield depending on which ability is chosen. By selecting Summon Serpents, Tiamat places a pit of creation which periodically spawns serpents of Tiamat that act like minions, traveling down lanes and attacking nearby enemies. By selecting Summon Beast, Tiamat calls forth Kusaraku, who stands guard at the target location. If an enemy god comes too close, he charges, slows, and attacks them for a short duration. Finally, by selecting Summon Storm, Tiamat calls on the power of Umu Dabrutu, conjuring a violent storm that follows enemies before knocking them upward and dissipating. Tiamat's first ability in ground stance is Consume. Tiamat fires a cone in front of her, dealing damage and slowing enemies' hit. If Tiamat hits any minions under a health threshold, they are immediately executed. Tiamat can also use this to consume a jungle buff, allowing her to pick up a second as well. Tiamat's second ability in ground stance is Outburst. Tiamat slams the ground, creating seismic rifts that erupt in succession in front of her, damaging and knocking up enemies' hit. Tiamat's ultimate ability in ground stance is Tempest of Undoing. Tiamat causes a celestial outburst around her, dealing initial damage and a damage over time effect to every enemy nearby, also gaining one Hardened Scale per enemy god hit. Tiamat is the mother of monsters, the primordial goddess, and her presence on the battlefield is terrifying. In her flying stance, Tiamat can poke enemies safely from range, summoning Beast or Storm to help lock down enemies in addition to Ruination, with a final primordial onslaught to whittle the opposition away. Tiamat can utilize Grounding Dive to transition to a brawling mage, using Tempest of Undoing to immediately gain hardened scales. Joining the fight with Outburst, Tiamat disrupts her enemies before consuming their very life force to end any fight. Thanks for watching the Smite God reveal for Tiamat, Goddess of the Salt Sea.